Welcome to today's webinar. I'm Charmaine Hammond, and I'm going to kind of MC this webinar with the amazing Candace Platter, and we have some questions. So the webinar that you are in today is Anchoring Hope During the Holidays. If you love an addict, for families that are dealing with addiction in the family, this is a really important topic. I know from having known Candace quite a number of years now that the holidays, which by the way isn't, the holidays is quite a long span, Candace tells me. It's kind of from now into after February and then all the holidays throughout. So let me introduce Candace Platter to all of you, and then we're going to dive into some questions. So Candace Platter is an addiction therapist in private practice where she specializes in working with the family and other loved ones of people who are struggling with addiction. She has a unique signature program called Love with Boundaries Family Addiction Counseling Program. What's important to know is Candace brings a really important element to the work that she does as a therapist with families who have people in the family struggling with addiction. As a former addict with 38 plus years clean and sober, Candace, that is incredible. That is such an accomplishment. Candace has learned that overcoming addiction is a family condition. Everyone in the family is affected by the addiction, and as Candace says, everyone needs to heal. Since 1991, Candace has been helping both addicts and their loved ones understand dysfunctional behaviors that are happening in the family and how to make healthier choices. The results have been quite incredible over these many years. Candace has achieved so many astounding results, and her team as well, including helping addicts stop using and helping the families regain their lives from all of the dysfunction that has happened from the addiction. Another really exciting element is very recently, Candace was the recipient, the 2025 recipient of the Age Care Seniors of Distinction Award for Leadership. And big congratulations for that, Candace. Not
Thank you.
only has Candace's success led to a waiting list of clients, but she is also a sought after leader in the field of addictions. Candace now works with her team of top counselors, helping families and addicts break the cycle of addiction for good. Candace and her team work with people around the globe, and I know have also opened up additional counseling appointments during the holiday season. Candace, welcome to today's conversation. It is so great to be here with you today.
Oh, thank you so much, Charmaine. Hi, everyone.
Yes, and I know you can't all say hi back because we're in webinar mode, but we feel you waving back at
We
us.
feel you. Yes,
All right, Candace, I think you've got so much goodness to cover here. I think if you're ready, let's dive into some questions.
sure.
I know we've got many for you.
Mhm.
I would love to start by having you share with everyone, how did you actually come to that decision to work in the field of addictions?
And I want to say, how many hours do we have for me to talk about that? But um, I'll start in when I was 23, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, and most people know what that is now. It's an inflammatory bowel disease that's hellish to try to control. Mine is a little bit better now, but it's still there. But when I was diagnosed with this, most doctors hadn't heard of it. It was like the new disease on the block, you know.
Mm,
And so what they did in trying to help me, because I was very, very sick for a long time, is they gave me medications, and addiction was not on the radar the way it is
mm,
now. For the first 15 years of my having Crohn's. Um, so I didn't realize what they were giving me, and I didn't realize that that was addictive and that I could run into trouble with that. And so
mm,
they gave me Valium and Ativan and oxycodone, morphine, different
mhm,
different opioids like that, and um, And, it's like anybody's body would get addicted to that, and mine definitely did. And I developed quite an addiction
Mm,
to opioids
wow.
mostly. And pot. I like pot too. So I would smoke pot. Um, but this went on for 15 years. My addiction went on for 15 years because the doctors didn't stop giving me those drugs. And thankfully, those drugs took away a lot of the pain and shame and, stuff that goes along with Crohn's. But they didn't know what they were unleashing upon me.
Right.
So toward the end of that 15 years in 1987, I became basically suicidal. I was so depressed. I didn't know why I was here. What good was I? How could, I, I had the same feelings that most addicts have at some point in their lives about, I'm just kind of taking up space here. I'm not doing much.
Mm,
So I reached out for help at that point instead of doing what I thought about doing to myself. And I'm so happy that I did that. I started my recovery in 1987, realized that I had an addiction. I didn't even know at that point that I did. And in 1991, I started working as an addictions counselor. I had been a teacher and a counselor before that, but I wanted to give back what I had been so freely given, the help and the
mm,
support. And so I became an addiction counselor um, in the downtown east side area of Vancouver, which is where I live,
mhm,
which is the lowest income postal code on the planet. And started seeing the addicts, and I, you know, and what happened when I was seeing the addicts was that their families started calling me.
mm,
They started calling me and they, well, we don't know what to do. We're just, he knocks on the door at 2 o'clock in the morning, or, those kinds of things that you hear from all families with
yeah.
addiction. And as I heard their stories and what they were going through, I realized, number one, that there was very little help for them. In fact, well, I won't say there was none at all, but there wasn't any counseling available that I could find. And I
Mm,
wanted to give that back. So I started working with the families of addicts and teaching them about enabling and teaching them about boundaries and teaching them about self respect. Um, and lo and behold, most of the addicts that I was working with started to change what they were doing when their families started to change.
wow.
And the rest is history.
Wow.
30 years have gone by. I've
Yeah.
written several books about this. And really, when the family stops enabling, when the family stops doing the stuff that keeps addiction going,
Hmm.
most of the time, I won't say all of the time, most of the time, the addicts take notice. They kind of go, uh-oh, this isn't working for me anymore.
Hmm.
And they change what they're doing. So
Right.
I knew I was on a path that would lead me somewhere to be able to help these families.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's such a journey, Candace. And one of the things I appreciate so much about the work that you do is that you are a trained, very, very, very experienced counselor in the field of addictions. And you also have this lived experience that you bring as another insight to the work that you do with your counseling clients and families. You
Yeah.
mentioned your books, and yes, you have several, several books and ebooks and a workbook and an incredible journal. We'll be getting links out to everyone if you're wondering, how do I find out about those? Not to worry, we'll get those to you in the follow-up email. I'm really curious, where did this idea to write your book that's won awards, that has just sold copies around the world? The book, so you all know, is called Loving an Addict, Loving Yourself, the top 10 survival tips for loving someone with an addiction. So, where did this idea, how did the book come to life?
Yeah. Um, I knew that I wouldn't be able to help everyone.
Hmm.
And I wasn't even going to be able to help everyone that called me. There just wasn't enough time. So I wanted to write something that people could read, that maybe they could get some help there and figure out what they could change about what they were doing. So the book, this is the title of the book, or this is
Yeah,
the front cover,
love that.
and I made sure that it was a very easy read. I think I probably was going for a grade 7 or grade 8 reading level, because there were people who were going to be reading it that that didn't have English as their first language,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
And I also didn't want to write a scientific book about addiction. There were plenty of those. I
Hmm.
wanted to write something practical that people could sink their teeth into and say, okay, I can make this change and I can make this change. And I'm going to try to do that. So I feel kind of like that book pretty much wrote itself,
Mm.
you know. It wasn't a hard book to write,
Yeah.
for me. I knew it so well, and
Hmm.
I knew what I wanted to tell people, to let people know about. Um, I've had other books that I've written that were hard to write,
Yeah.
but that one was a pretty easy one for me. Yeah.
Wow. I wanted to ask because behind you is a butterfly, and
Ah,
on the cover is a butterfly. So, this
the
is a great
butterfly.
time to talk about the connection between your work, your writing, and the butterfly, in case people are
And
notifying and noticing that.
and on the workbook that goes with the book,
Yes,
it has a
exactly.
butterfly and chains that start
Oh,
to go away.
right.
Um, so So you want my butterfly story?
Yeah,
Um, Short and very briefly, I'll tell you my butterfly story. A butterfly, I mean, I find butterflies beautiful. I
me
think they're
too. Me too.
wonderful, but that's not why I love butterflies. I love butterflies because of everything that they have to go through. Let me take a
Yes,
sip. To become a butterfly, because a
right.
butterfly starts out as a caterpillar,
Yeah.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
caterpillars, little boys like to cut up caterpillars and step on them and squish them, and
Ah.
little girls like to, and the caterpillar gets no respect. And I used to be a caterpillar.
Mm.
And I think maybe some people listening today have see themselves that way. And then when the time is right, a caterpillar climbs up a tree, goes onto a limb, creates a chrysalis filled with what I like to call bug juice, and sits in the bug juice for as long as it takes for it to totally, almost totally change its DNA. And at the right moment, not too fast, not too slow, at the right moment, they come out of the chrysalis and they become butterflies. This amazing, beautiful, like people don't say, ew, a butterfly. Nobody
Yeah.
says that. They say, oh, wow,
You're
a
taken
butterfly.
by them. Yeah,
And,
beautiful.
I feel like I've done this journey from caterpillar to butterfly most
Mm.
days. Sometimes, some days I feel like a caterpillar again, don't we all? But
Mm-hmm.
most of the time, it's like, I know who I am now. I have the self respect that I teach other people to have. I know what it feels like not to have it,
Yeah.
and I know what it feels like to have it, and that's a lot better.
Yeah. I love that story, Candace, and it just frames what we're talking about today in terms of anchoring hope and, you know, navigating the holiday season, which is so challenging for families when they have someone who is struggling with addiction. I
Yeah.
know your book has so many messages that relate to the holiday season, but also all year long. If you were to summarize some main messages, what are the main messages in the book?
I think the, maybe the two or three main ones would be to not to understand the difference between enabling, which
Hmm.
has become a buzzword in counseling. Most people know what enabling is, and enabling is when you consistently do something for somebody else that they
Right.
should be. I don't use the word should very often, but they
Hmm.
should be doing for themselves.
Yeah.
That's enabling. It's a codependent stance to take
Hmm.
with somebody. And most families are doing that with addicts. So the the what I would look at is the difference between enabling and helping.
Yeah.
If you're enabling, you're part of the problem. You've
Yeah.
got something that you need to change, usually first, before you'll see any changes in your addict.
Yeah.
It isn't good for the addict for you to enable them.
Hmm.
And people think about money usually when they think about enabling. Oh, I give somebody $20 or I pay somebody's rent. There's other ways to enable. And there
Hmm.
are ways to change those things into helping behaviors. And we can maybe go back to that and I can give
Yeah.
you an example.
Yeah.
Um, the other one is to take responsibility for yourself and to not give in to manipulation from the addict. That is
Mm.
not good for the addict that you love.
Yeah.
I know if you're sitting there listening to this and you have an addict in your life, you might not always feel like you love them.
Mhm.
You might not always feel like this is the addict I love, because a lot of the time you don't like them very much at all. You don't like what they're doing.
Mm.
But if they're getting away with manipulating you, that's on you. And that's
Yeah.
something you can change. And it's better for them. It's better.
Mm.
It's a win win for both of you.
Yeah.
The third one is self care.
Mm.
And it's the biggest chapter in my book,
Yeah.
you know, because it's so important about how you're looking after yourself and maybe how you aren't, and how you feel about yourself. And do you feel like you deserve self care? Do you feel like you deserve to put yourself first?
Hmm.
It's not selfish to take care of yourself. And a lot of people think, they get selfish and self care confused. And I'm telling you now, selfish is when the addict says, I want what I want and I want it right now and you better give it to me or I'm gonna, whatever. That's selfish,
Hmm.
right? Self-care, caring about yourself enough, and in the book I talk about what everybody has heard who has flown on a plane, because they talk about, if the masks come down, you
Right.
have to put your mask on first. They don't tell you to put
Hmm.
your mask on last. They don't tell you to take care of, your sick one or your child, or, you don't put their mask on first. You put your own mask on first,
Hmm.
because if you don't, you're going to be lying on the floor of the plane, unable to help anybody.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, self-care. I couldn't agree with you more. And these three messages we're going to dive into a little deeper now around how they relate to the holiday season and anchoring hope for families who have addiction in the family. So you were talking great explanation, by the way, about the difference between helping and enabling. And sometimes I'm hearing you say it feels like a very fine line. One of the things I love that you say, Candace, and I've heard you say this lots, is actually you say it because you say it way better than me about if nothing changes. So why don't you share this
Yeah.
quote? Because I think it's like something we want to write on a sticky note and keep around our house during the holiday season.
This should be taught in kindergarten to
Yeah,
people, to little children. They should be able to recite this.
yeah,
If nothing changes, just think about it for a minute. If nothing changes, nothing changes. If
yeah.
nothing changes, nothing changes. And if you, as a family member, have things that you need to change about yourself and how you're dealing with the addict that you love, you don't always like, but that you love, you have to do something about that.
Hmm.
That needs to change
Yeah.
because, an enabled addict will not come to you and say, please set some healthy boundaries for me.
Hmm.
I mean, an addict isn't going to say that to you. An addict wants
Hmm.
to be able to keep manipulating you for as long as possible because they're scared. They've got their
Right.
reasons for doing that. They're not
Hmm.
trying to hurt you. They're just self-absorbed in
Hmm.
active addiction,
Yeah.
So they're not going to come and ask you to do that for them. And if you don't set some healthy boundaries for them, nothing much is going to change.
Yeah.
They're what I like to say to people is that an enabled addict doesn't change because why should they?
Mm,
If they've got somebody else that's
right.
doing everything for them,
Yeah.
believing in the fact that they can't do anything for themselves, which they can,
Hmm.
why should they change?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful quote for us all to remember, and we'll make sure that we put that in the resources for you too that are coming by email
Okay.
after. And I wanted to mention, folks, that we will be doing questions and answer at the end. So if you do end up having questions now, as Candace is sharing this wealth of information, you can pop them in the chat or in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to those during the Q&A period. Candace, I want to dive a bit deeper into helping and enabling because I've heard you say that a lot of enabling happens during the holiday season, and you've explained what the difference is. Is there anything else that you wanted to say around helping and enabling, especially as it relates to anchoring hope in the holiday season?
Yeah. The best way to stop enabling is to know what your boundaries are.
Mm,
And boundaries is another buzzword that's used a lot in the counseling field. Um, well used, I think, because the reason I call my company Love with Boundaries is
hmm.
because we need to love. We need to love other people, and we need to do that with boundaries, you know? So,
Hmm.
in order to stop enabling, people need to know what their boundaries are, what they will put up with and won't put up with, and be able to say that to your addict,
Right.
and that's a really scary thing for
Hmm.
families because the addict is gets so good at getting angry and throwing things and pushing people and breaking walls and doing those kinds of things that the family kind of wants to make sure everything's okay and not get him
Hmm.
angry or not get her angry, and so they pussyfoot all over the place,
Right.
and that's not helpful for your addict.
Right. Yeah.
How is that helpful for them?
Yeah.
And it's not helpful for you. You don't feel good about yourself. You know that you are pretty much resenting,
Hmm.
the addict that you love, you know. So boundaries need to be set.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's some of the, some of the work I've heard you talk about before, Candace, is, boundary setting happens a lot around the holiday season, and we're going to get into that in just a moment. I want to get your take on, the theme of this Addictions Awareness Week is around anchoring hope. So, what is the connection between hope or anchoring hope and helping families who have a loved one struggling with addiction? How does this help? How does hope help guide people through the holiday season?
When I do these kinds of webinars or podcasts, people ask me often at the end, do you have anything more that you want to say?
Yeah.
And usually I say, I want to tell people to never give up.
Mm,
If your addict is still here with us, there's hope. This can change. I promise you, this
mm,
situation with your addict and you can change. And so I don't want you to feel like you're giving up. I don't want you to just throw your hands up and say, there's nothing I can do for you. Get out of my house.
mhm.
That's not, that sometimes is an answer. When the addict says, I'm not going to change, I'm going to stay in active addiction, then you might need to say to them, if you're going to do that, if that's your choice, then you need to do it somewhere else, you
Right.
know. But but not having the boundaries, not having hope, not, you know, the the addict has developed a fine sense in being able to argue for his or her limitations.
Mm,
I can't do my laundry. I don't know how to work the washing machine. You know, I'm helpless. I'm hopeless. I can't do any. I can't have a job. I can't do anything. Leave me alone. Get off my back. The addict is
mhm.
very good at that. Don't buy into that. An addict can get a job. An addict can learn how to use the washing machine. That was one example I was going to
Mhm.
give you before, that
Yeah.
that's one way of enabling somebody, is that
Mhm.
if they're an adult, that you wash their clothes.
Mhm.
They should know how to wash their own clothes, and
Yeah.
really they should know that. So if you haven't taught them that, you need to teach them that. This is
Mhm.
the button you push, and you put your clothes in here, and this is how much detergent, and let him do it the first time. And
Right.
if he if he screws it up and something shrinks in the wash, oh well, he'll be more careful next time.
Mhm.
But you
Yeah.
don't give into, he can't do it. He can't do it. I hear this from families all the
Yeah.
time. He can't do it. He's depressed. He's anxious. He can't do it. I know what you mean. I was there.
Mhm.
And I know that can get better.
Mhm. I love that example because we can probably see this play out in many different forms in a family. And so when you were talking about the example of laundry, Candace, what I was hearing is so hope is so important for the relationship, for the success of your loved one who is the navigating addiction, for the family as a unit, for the loved ones themselves. So I'm hearing how hope is just woven through everything when you are
Yes.
dealing with a loved one with addiction. The other piece that I really heard, I heard that if nothing changes, nothing changes, because you were saying when it, if the person who is dealing with addiction says, I don't know how to do my laundry, and then a family member just goes and does the laundry,
Yeah,
nothing
it'd be
is going to
easier if I just
change.
do it. I might as well just
Right.
do it. I
So
mean,
nothing
yeah,
will change because nothing changed. So that's a great example
right.
of, so if you were to set a boundary or teach the loved one how to do laundry, something has now changed. Something is different. And I also heard this theme coming through, Candace, about when we don't set boundaries and when we don't kind of create those expectations or don't take the time to teach someone, and then we jump into that enabling mode, we're actually disempowering them as well. So it sounds like what you're saying is that, I've heard you say this before, that enabling is not an act of love, and teaching someone and helping and growing through change is an example, and boundaries are one of them. And they're hard to set. I think a lot of people
Yeah,
struggle with boundaries.
yeah. And I think one way you can set it is to be able to say to the addict that you do love him. I love you. I love you so much. And that's why I'm going to teach you how to do your own laundry.
That's
I'm
a
going
writer
to te-
downer.
I'm going to teach you how to do your own laundry because I love you. Not It's not a punishment.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is really important. And I know, Candace, in your blogs, in your articles, I've seen you give examples of how we might language something like in a family, they might, and I'm just using this example of laundry that can play out with any other type of boundary. But, a person might be upset or frustrated, you do your own laundry. I'm never doing your laundry again. But the way that you worded it, you focused on, I love you. So you focused on the relationship and
Yep.
used the word and, not but. And
Yep.
then you explained why you wanted to teach that skill. And I can see where during the holiday season, which goes on, throughout the year, really, there's so many boundaries to set. Are there other examples that you can give us around what are some of the boundaries that people need to set as they navigate the holiday season with their loved one?
Yeah. And one of the most difficult boundaries for people is about whether we should invite the addict to our gathering
Mm,
or to somebody else's gathering that we're going to. And that's always a hard one. You know, it's it's interesting because when you love an addict, you don't love the stuff that the addict is doing. You don't
right.
love the self-absorption of the addict. In fact, you could do quite well without that
Mm,
for the rest of your life. And I can show you how to get there.
mhm,
But um, when when you're looking at whether to set the boundary, one thing you could say to your addict, you basically sit them down. I have something I want to talk to you about. We love you so much. We would love to have you at our gathering this year. That means that you'll have to be clean, sober, not gambling on your phone, not doing
mhm,
the overeating things because, I'm gonna interrupt myself and say the controversial thing that I do like to say that some people listening to this might not agree with, and that's okay. Um, but I see addiction not as a disease.
mhm.
I know there's brain involvement. I know, all of that stuff is true about addiction. More than anything else, addiction is a choice that people make to have to take care of themselves, to have a better life, they think. It's going to come around and it's going to bite you on the butt if you use addiction for that. There are other ways to do that to feel better about yourself. But addiction is a choice. And the only way that people recover from addiction is when they make the choice to do that.
Mhm.
Okay. So you can say to your addict, we would love to have you join us. It means you're going to be clean and sober, whatever that, could mean gambling, whatever. Um, and that you'll stay that way through the whole gathering. If you decide to go and take a swig from a bottle that's sitting in the kitchen, or you decide to smoke a joint in the backyard or do some coke in the bathroom, then we're going to take your keys and we'll call a ride share will call an Uber for you, and you'll be taken away from our gathering. We don't want that to happen. We'd love to have you here for the whole thing, but that's what we expect if you are going to be here. So maybe what you can think about, addict, maybe what you can think about is whether under those conditions you would like to come, whether you think you could do that for a few hours, and you can make the decision because you'll know what the consequences are if you don't follow it. But we're just not going to do what we did last year and the year before.
Yeah. What really shone through as I was listening to you kind of almost be in a role play situation where you're telling us what a boundary could look like, feel like, and sound like, I heard love woven right through there. The other thing that I heard, Candace, was the speed of your voice. It was calm, the speed, it wasn't rushed, there was no drama, there was no intense emotion. And easier to listen to that. There was no judgment, there was no blame. And it sounds like those are the pieces of a boundary. And I heard you finish that up with choice. That
Yeah.
ultimately it's that family member's choice, whether those are the expectations that person can live with to join the family during that family event or dinner.
And thank you for saying that because it really is the addict's choice.
Yeah.
And we can't make that choice for the addict.
Hmm.
It's just not possible on this planet to make somebody else's choices for them. It doesn't work.
Right. Well, one of the things I've heard you say before, I think it was on one of the podcasts I was listening to, and you were talking about boundaries, and you talked about it's even though boundaries can be uncomfortable to set and can be difficult, and we might need to practice that wording.
Yeah.
What I heard you say was something to the effect of, and when we don't set a boundary, and now the behavior that you didn't want to have happen is happening
Right.
at the family dinner, now you've got to go set a boundary. And that's a
Yeah.
whole kind of different conversation. So what I
Well, but
love,
but you
because now
don't
you're
have
intervening.
you don't have to, sorry to cut you
Yeah,
off. You
no,
don't
no, that's
have to
okay.
set the boundary. You can stay not setting a boundary.
Mm-hmm.
And if you choose to not set a boundary, because you've got choices too as the family
Right.
member. So if you choose not to do something different so that something different happens, then you're just going to be putting up with addiction again.
Yeah.
You're just going to be
Yeah.
putting up with another Christmas like this one.
Yeah. It's like you're having to now intervene versus when you've set a boundary, the person is well aware, the expectations are clear, they've been
Yeah,
able to make their own informed choice and do what they might need to do to show up in a way that has been, set in the boundary that they agreed to. When there isn't a boundary, now you're full on in intervention type mode, which is a completely different kind of scenario. And I think what I took away from the example you gave, Candace, was the importance of our language and wording, that how we say a boundary is as important as what we say in a boundary setting.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's really important when you're setting boundaries to come from a place of being assertive,
Hmm.
being self-caring and self-respectful and respectful of the addict as well, because he
Right.
has the right to make the choice to use.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, he
Right.
has the right to be in active addiction. We can't take that away from him.
Yeah.
We can change what we're doing to make it more difficult for the addict to continue to use. And this is what this is all about. We're going to make
Mm.
it uncomfortable for the addict in a positive, healthy way. We're going to make it uncomfortable for the addict to continue doing what he's been doing.
One of the things that I think is so helpful that you and the Love with Boundaries counseling team do is working with the loved ones of the addict or the person struggling with that addiction, you're working with the family so that they can learn to create these boundaries. So it goes from, I should set a boundary to you're being able to help your clients work with that wording,
Yeah.
practice it so it becomes more comfortable and we're not stumbling, the person is not stumbling over the words. So I think that's so valuable what you
And
do.
thank you. And one of the things that we do is we record our sessions with our
Mm,
clients. We record them, and this then the clients, the families, get the audio recording so they can listen
they
to
can
it back.
listen.
And when in the session, if we've talked about how to set a boundary, because it's like you need to set boundaries, and they
Hmm.
say, what, how do I do that? I don't know how to
Right.
do that. That's scary, you know. So
Hmm.
we talk about that, exactly what you're saying, in the session, and I give the wording for
Brilliant.
how they might be able to say it. I've got three ways that work, that they can say, that they can set a
Hmm.
boundary. And that's in the session that they had, so they can listen to it back. And when they're
Right.
not feeling aggressive or passive, when they
Hmm.
are feeling assertive and self respecting, they
Hmm.
can set that boundary
Yeah.
and they know how to do it.
Yeah. It becomes part of their communication skills, is what I'm hearing you say. I love that. And this is like a skill for life, really. I mean, we think about the times we need to set boundaries in our work world, in our personal health. So, I mean, that is a skill set that can be used, I believe, not just in addictions. It can be a valuable, helpful skill for life. Is that a
Yeah.
fair statement?
Yeah, I've had people tell me that, more than a few. I've had people tell me that that my book is like a parenting book. You
Mm.
don't even he doesn't the person doesn't even need to be an addict, just a child. A parenting book, how to set boundaries with
Hmm.
children,
Yeah.
so they don't grow up into be addicts, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
So when you think about the holiday season, because I know that this is a lot of the work you and your counseling team do with loved ones, what else do loved ones need to know as they're navigating the holidays and the post holidays? Are there other tips that you can provide that would be helpful for families and the loved ones?
I think money is an issue.
Mm,
Money is an issue when often an addict will not have any money because any money that they get is spent on the addiction. So parents, again, can talk to the addict maybe a couple of weeks before Christmas.
mhm.
And when I say Christmas, I'm including all the holidays that
Yeah.
are around Christmas. But can talk to the addict and say to them, we're not going to be giving you any money,
Hmm.
and it's okay with us this year if you don't buy us gifts, but we're not going to give you money, because when we give you money, we see where that money goes, and we love you so much that we don't want to continue supporting your addiction.
Mm.
We don't want to do that. So when we give you money and we see that you buy alcohol or whatever you're buying with it, and it puts you right back in the situation of being in addiction, that's really hard for us because we care about you so much, and we don't want you to be in that life. So
Mm.
we've decided that we're not going to be giving you money. If at any point you decide that you want to be in recovery, we'll support you in that in whatever ways we're able to. We'll support you in that. But we're not going to give you money. So, you know, don't even
Hmm.
ask, because
Hmm.
it's not going to happen. And that's because we love you. We don't want you in
Yeah.
addiction. We love you. We don't want you in addiction. We're not going to
Yeah.
support that.
Another great example of a boundary that might need to be set around the holiday season or even throughout the year.
Yeah.
Candace, some people might be wondering, is there a difference in the way that you work with alcohol addiction or drug misuse or other types of addictions such as eating disorders or compulsive spending or gambling or internet addiction? Are there differences in how that is dealt with?
It's an interesting question because I I believe and I have seen other addictions aside from drugs and alcohol. I've seen addiction kill people.
Mm,
It nearly got
so
me,
sad.
and I've seen it kill people. Um, Usually, if it's not drugs and alcohol, usually by their own hand. Usually they owe
Mm,
too much money, or uh, there's something that they just sort of can't stand themselves. They don't like
mhm,
themselves. And um, so I just don't think that with counseling for addiction, I don't think that can wait. I think that's
mm,
something that needs to happen as soon as it can happen. Um, but saying that, I do work with
mhm.
drugs, alcohol, and sometimes eating disorders differently than I would. You know, there there's more if it's a substance that you're putting
Mhm.
in your body. Those substances are toxic,
Mm,
which means they're poison. You know, and
mhm,
when somebody is putting those things into their bodies, and alcohol is one of them. It's a very
mhm.
societally accepted, you know,
Yeah.
there's proof now that it causes cancer, just drinking a few drinks every day. Um,
Mm,
so I will deal with families mostly who have an addiction to a substance a little more differently. A little more differently, is that even a word?
sounds good to me.
Yeah, I'll work with them differently, because they're actually putting
Right.
substances in their bodies, you know.
Mhm.
And as soon as a person who is alcohol or drug addicted is ready for counseling, then I will work with them as well,
Yeah.
or they can go to treatment, whatever they decide to do.
Mhm.
Um, but I do know that addiction in any kind of way can take people out.
Mhm.
There's there's not there's not a lot of good reason to be waiting to get this done. People think, oh,
Yeah.
I've got lots of time. He's okay. He's not,
Mm,
you never know when something like that can hit.
yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's okay until it isn't,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question,
It
but
absolutely did. And I'm just going to put up a quick poll here for those of you that are joining us live. I know some of you will be listening to the recording later, but I'm just going to launch a little poll with, I believe we've got 3 questions. And let me just launch that. It should show up on your screen. So the first question is, I would like to connect with Candace after the webinar. So yes, no, unsure. So you can let us know about that so that we can make sure Candace can follow up with you. The second question
how do I
is,
know how to get in touch with someone?
yes, we'll be able to, I think there's a spot at the end on the feedback at the end of the
Okay.
webinar for people to let us know.
Yeah, make
Um,
sure you let me
yep.
know how to connect with you if you want to.
You
Yeah.
betcha. And I'll put a link in the chat box as well before we wrap up, Candace, to let people know where they can find Love with Boundaries. We've got some more questions here. The second question in the poll is I'd like to learn more about the 16-step online group counseling program for women. So yes, no, or unsure. And then the third question is I have a loved one, and loved one is a really broad definition. For you, that might be a coworker, it might be a relative, it might be a friend, a dear friend. So when we use loved one, it covers a lot of people. But I have a loved one dealing with some sort of an addiction, yes or no. So I'll just give you a moment to just answer the poll, and then we're going to close that and dive into a few more questions about navigating the holidays. And I
And
will,
can I just say, Charmaine,
yeah,
that if there are counselors on this call, you might have a
yes.
client that's
Ah,
dealing with an addiction, or you might be dealing with a loved one who has a who has an addict in their family,
yeah,
and you're wanting to help them. So
that's a really important point.
this is such an amazing, not in a good way. This is an amazing situation that touches so many people
Yeah,
in so many different kinds of ways.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, one of the things that we heard you talk about in the beginning was there's, different levels of support and help that families need. So it may be support and help for the addict, for the family members, for the family as a unit, for friends that are the support system of the addict or the loved ones. So I love
yeah.
that you talk about this topic, Candace, in such a broad way. One
And
of,
I believe, I'll just say quickly,
yeah,
I believe that we can stop addiction
yeah,
if we stop enabling addicts.
yeah,
It'll be done.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's so important. And it brings us right back to the topic of today's webinar, having hope.
yeah.
One of the questions I was reflecting on too, Candace, was like, how do people get involved in addictive behaviors in the very first place? And you've covered all kinds of addictions, whether it's drugs or alcohol or gambling or internet or food or spending all kinds of money. How do people get involved and how can you tell the difference between whether it's a hobby or an actual addiction? What would people be looking for? And especially at the holiday season.
Mhm. Um, how do people get involved in addiction? I think the answer to that is an addict tries something, tries a drug, tries a drink, tries to gamble, whatever, and says to himself, oh, that feels better.
Mm,
I like the way that makes me feel. And like I said before, it's going to
right.
come around and bite him on the butt because
Hmm.
addiction never is the way to do that. Um, but that's what happens is, people use addiction as almost a form of self-care.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel good in life. I
Hmm.
don't like how I feel, and I'm always anxious. I'm depressed. I'm all kinds of things. I have pain, all kinds of things and I use this, and oh,
Hmm.
that's better.
Yeah.
And they're hooked
Right.
because that feels better. So the next one's going to feel better. There's a saying
Right.
in 12-step programs, one is, one is not, one is too many and 1,000 never enough.
Mm,
One is too many. One
right.
drug, one drink, whatever is too many, and 1,000
Hmm.
is never enough.
Yes, exactly. And
And
I'm
that's
just going to put a couple of these links that I promised people in the chat box so I don't forget. The other question that's now popping up for me, Candace, every time you give an answer, another question pops up. So when we're thinking about navigating the holiday seasons, and there's lots of challenging and emotional situations that go on with this. And I know from talking to you, we've had lots of conversations as colleagues over the years, and what are some of the addictive behaviors that the loved ones of addicts might exhibit? So there's all this lead up going on, but what are some of the addictive behaviors of the loved ones that
yeah,
of addicts?
that's such a good question.
Mm,
It's very usual in the families that I see for the 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 worry about the conflict and the consequence and the chaos
Mm-hmm.
is going to affect people. And
Right.
so, you know, mom or dad might have a glass of wine at 5 o'clock when he's cooking dinner, she's cooking dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And that feels better. So next time, mom will have 2 glasses of wine cooking
Mm.
dinner. And then mom will have a couple of donuts and maybe 3 glasses of wine later while she's cooking dinner. The way that family members get addicted is by, I think, not having hope that any of this can change. And whatever feels better to them in a place of not having hope, they're
Mm-hmm.
going to have more of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. That hope just really, it's like the thread that weaves everything together is what I'm really one of the
You
big
know,
takeaways.
until clients or families meet with somebody like me, they don't
Hmm.
have hope that it can change.
Right.
They go to 12-step meetings or they go to support groups or they just keep hearing people talking about it. Oh, it's Christmas and my son's coming home. My daughter's going to, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And that's what they keep hearing
Right.
until they really get into owning what's theirs and changing what they can and having a different Christmas.
Yes. Yeah.
And this is all possible. And yes, it's going to be uncomfortable, but it's not going to be as uncomfortable as you think it's going to be, probably. And I'm here with you, and my counselors are here with you. You know, when we take
Hmm.
on a client, not only are we recording the session, but they have access to us in between sessions. If
Yeah.
something happens on Tuesday and your session isn't until Friday, but you
Wow.
need help on Tuesday, you can access us,
Yeah.
you know.
That's so important for families because sometimes I'm imagining those crises do happen and there's those, I need support right now. Yeah.
Especially at this time of year, they do.
Yes,
Because the
exactly.
addict is worried too about Christmas coming.
Hmm.
The addict is worried about some stuff too that he's probably not talking to anybody about.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and if you're wanting your addict to change, but you're not willing to make the changes that you need to make, first of all, that's not fair.
Hmm.
And secondly, it isn't going to work very well at all for
Right.
you. You'll be waiting for the addict to change, and you'll be going to counseling or someplace, and you'll be saying, fix my addict. If you fix my addict, then everything will be okay.
Mm.
That's not how it works. It's not fair for you not to make the changes you need to make, but expect the addict to make the changes they need to make. It's
Yeah.
a family issue.
Yeah. Such an important takeaway. And if you have questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A or in the question box. And I was also going to say that I know sometimes when you're taking in lots of information, the questions actually happen once the webinar ends. That happens to me
Yeah.
all the time when I take webinars and
Don't you
classes.
hate that?
So I wanted
Yeah.
to say there'll be a follow-up email that comes to all of you, and it will have Carol, who is one of the team members at Love with Boundaries. It'll have Carol's email that you can forward any questions, and Carol will get those to Candace so
Yeah.
that a response can come out to you. So please know that after the webinar today, the Love with Boundaries team will absolutely take any questions that you've
and
got.
and we can also answer them on Ask Candace Live
Oh, that's a great
when we
idea,
do that.
Candace. Yes, that's
Yeah,
a great idea. For those of you that might be wondering, what's that? Candace does a live opportunity. It's online and it's called Ask Candace Live, and people can email their questions to the team. There's a place in the website, lovewithboundaries.com website that you can put your questions in. And then Candace and the counseling team who are on the call with Candace will actually answer those questions. And, such a powerful way to be able to get those really specific questions,
yeah.
handled.
Like
So I
I
appreciate
have a
that you
loved
do
one and
that.
I don't know what to do, and yeah,
Right.
yeah. Ask your questions if you have them, and
Yeah.
if you would like to be on a 30-minute free um, consultation call, if you'd like to have one of those for the situation that you're in right now, just fill out a questionnaire. I think you've got the questionnaire,
Yes,
the
I
link
think
for
that's
that.
there now. Yep. It's in the
It's
chat
a pretty
box.
brief questionnaire.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody will follow up with you as soon as we get that,
Great.
because addiction doesn't wait, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, Candace, what helpful information for families and loved ones as they go into this holiday season. But what you talked about today is not just for the holiday season. These are skills and tools for life when you're talking about how we communicate boundaries, the importance of hope, the importance of fostering choice,
Yeah.
helping instead of enabling. Such content, rich content, Candace, that you shared today.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
if there are no questions, I just want to do a double check here that I haven't missed any questions. I don't think I have. So if there are no questions right now at this minute, I'm going to encourage you, if you do have a question pop up, email the Love with Boundaries team and get your question out there. I know that Candace and her team will have the answer for you. And there's also so many resources on the lovewithboundaries.com website, the blog that Candace writes, other articles and information. I would highly suggest that you take a peek as well at Candace's TEDx talk. There's a link right on the Love with Boundaries website. It's a really, I found the first time I met you, Candace, and I watched that, I thought, wow, this is just such important information. And you've just
Mm.
had thousands and thousands of views on that. So congratulations.
Thank
And
you.
thank you so much.
We've also got a YouTube page as well.
Yes, you do. Yes, that's another great place to hear Candace talking about some of what we discussed today, but also all kinds of other information. And Candace, I just want to thank you for
Mm.
having this webinar today to talk about some situations that can be very difficult and troubling for families. And you've provided people with some very, very valuable strategies, even scripts of what people can say to set a boundary if this is new
Yeah.
for them. So thank you, Candace, for everything you do,
Mm.
and for how you
Thank you.
help families.
It's my pleasure. It really is.